Hi, I'm Rocco and welcome to StoryMakers. Today I am so excited because our guest is the Caldecott Medal winning Matt Cordell, one of my favorite people, and we're going to be talking about another one of my favorite people, and that's why I am wearing this sweater. Hello Neighbor is all about Mr. Rogers. Were you a fan of Mr. Rogers before writing the book?
I was, yeah. So I grew up in the late 70s. I was born in 75. So I grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and I loved it as a little boy. And then when I became a dad myself, I turned on PBS Kids one afternoon, and my daughter and I were watching, and an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood came on, and it shot me straight back to when I was a little boy watching it and loving it, and just really blew my mind how kind of radical it was for its time and for our time as well.
You said you watched it as a child. Is there any particular thing that you remember enjoying about Mr. Rogers and his neighborhood?
The structure of the show, you start out in Mr. Rogers' sort of real home, and then he talks to you about a topic or subject, and then you're transported via trolley. This little character named Trolley would take you into the neighborhood of Make-Believe. Make-Believe was this really fantasy-based, lots of puppets and people, big, beautiful, bright colors and set pieces. And I loved the neighborhood of Make-Believe. I loved all the puppet characters. I remember loving King Friday the 13th and Daniel Tiger.
You mentioned that when you watched it as an adult, you saw things that you really didn't notice as a child. So what were some of those things?
Yeah, so as an adult and as a parent, I was watching it, and I was really struck by how quiet the show is and how calm, and sort of it takes its time with the viewer, and talked about things that other television shows and some other things for children don't talk about, which are the feelings of children, not just happy and silly and goofy side of kids, but also sometimes boys and girls, they have lots of feelings. They're sad, they're angry, things that a lot of television programs do not really talk about.
So the book, would you call the book a biography of Mr. Rogers?
I call it a picture book biography. So I got to draw all these wonderful pictures of Mr. Rogers throughout his life and all the different parts of the television program, behind the scenes. And then at the back of the biography, there's a lot more words. There's a lot more text that explains in more detail about his life, about the show, that I put in little Easter eggs, you might call them, where there's little secret pictures throughout the book that you might not see at first, but when you see it at the back, where we have a visual glossary, it's called, where you can look back and see all the different smaller little hidden pictures that I put in, which was fun as well.
Even though it is a picture book biography, as an adult, when I read it, I learned things about Mr. Rogers, and I actually learned why there's a character named Mr. McFeely. Can you explain the origin of Mr. McFeely?
There's a recurring character who comes in on a lot of the episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He comes in and brings deliveries to Mr. Rogers, and the delivery man's name is Mr. McFeely. Mr. Rogers, his real name is Fred Rogers, and his middle name is McFeely. So his name is Fred McFeely Rogers, and the name McFeely comes from his grandfather, whose last name was McFeely. So that's kind of a fun detail. There were a lot of things throughout Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood where he brought, parts of his own life into some of the storytelling and the character names, and that's one of the things that I loved discovering as I researched the biography, was about Mr. McFeely.
He would have guests on his program, and one of the guests I remember was when he had Margaret Hamilton, and most of you won't know who Margaret Hamilton is, but if I said the Wicked Witch of the West, from the Wizard of Oz, you would know who I'm talking about. And so he brought her to the program to address, feelings of being afraid of witches, right?
That was another part of the show that I loved too, was when Mr. Rogers would bring on artists and grown-ups of different professions, doctors, construction workers, all kinds of different types of jobs. And he brought on the actress, Margaret Hamilton. She brought a costume that she had when she was in the movie, and she put it on and showed boys and girls and Mr. Rogers that it was just a part that she played. Witches aren't real. That type of wicked witch it was in the movie, but she wasn't a witch, and so these were the kind of things that Mr. Rogers shared with boys and girls, about fantasy and truth and things that happen in real life, and how sometimes people play parts.
Mr. Rogers discussed workers and what they do, and you're going to tell us what you do, because you're going to give us a tour of your workspace or studio. I can't wait to see that.
Absolutely. Let's go have a look at my studio. So this is the room and the desk where I draw a lot of the pictures for my books and write stories for my books. Lots of pictures around me that inspire me. There's a poster of Mr. Rogers and a signed picture from Mr. McFeely. I got to meet him one day. And look, there's a postcard, a Mr. Rogers postcard that our friend Rocco actually sent me in the mail one day, which was a fun surprise to receive. I'm drawing the pictures for my books, like this one here, a picture of Mr. Rogers that I drew. I use a special kind of pen here, and this is a pen that I use. And this is a pen that's unlike a lot of the pens that we use, like this one, where there's ink inside the pen. You just draw right with it. This one doesn't have ink, so I have to dip it into a bottle of ink in order to make it draw. So I would draw this picture here with this pen without any color yet. Then I use watercolor paints like these, and brushes like these, mostly small brushes, because the pictures I draw are mostly smaller size, about the size of the books that I make. But occasionally I need to use a bigger brush to do big washes, like a sky or a big green field of grass. And here are some different pictures that I've drawn, finished pictures of Mr. Rogers. You can see the lines are drawn with that pen and ink that I showed you. And then the color is colored with watercolor. And these are just a few little pictures that I've done recently for different projects. This is the last one I'll show you. This is a picture. I really had a lot of fun drawing this. A picture of Mr. Rogers, and Ella Jenkins is her name. She's a really beloved musician, plays and performs for children. And she lives near where I live here in Chicago. So you can tell it's pretty messy, I think you might agree. But I think it's okay, a little bit of clutter from time to time. At least as long as you're getting some work done, right?
That was great to see your studio and all the tools you use that won you a Caldecott Medal. Can you show us your medal?
So the medal itself, it comes in this beautiful wooden box. So if you open it up, there's a little switch here. The top opens up, and you can see it's in a nice little holder right there, and you pop it up, and then you can see right there is the Caldecott Metal.
So Matt, what was one of your favorite things about creating this book?
Fred Rogers, he was a special hero of mine growing up, as well as now when I'm an adult. So it was a wonderful experience to be able to research his life and learn more about him, and read books and maybe look at interviews that he did, and then to draw pictures of him. It was really fun for me to be able to draw pictures of Mr. Rogers and all the characters and people in his life in my illustration style. So I loved, creating the book, learning about him, and making a book about someone's life, which was all really new to me.
So why don't we ask our viewers to find a hero in their own community and do a little research and perhaps draw a picture of that person or something that is related to that person. They can post it online using the hashtag #HelloNeighbor.
That's a wonderful idea. I think it would be, it's just such a rewarding experience, I think, to honor someone that you love or respect in that way, to draw a picture of them and maybe learn more about them and write a little something about their life. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Well, you know, Mr. Rogers used to end a show the way he began it. He used to take his sweater off, put his jacket on, put his shoes back on, and then he would sing a little song, and he would assure everybody that he would be back. And you know, boys and girls, we will be back with another episode of StoryMakers. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so glad we were able to see each other and spend a little time together on this day, and hope to see you again.
Remember, until next time, read a book in any format.